Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of MotorMouth, brought to you by the Boyertown Museum of Historic Vehicles. I'm Kendra.
I'm Dan.
And I'm really excited, Dan, about what you're going to share with us today, because this is a question we get asked a lot, actually, by visitors. And I have my little cheat sheet here, so I kind of know what's coming up, and I'm excited about it. So go ahead. Why are we standing by our beautiful
there's no pressure.
SGV? No pressure.
Yeah, well, actually, there is.
There's going to be a lot of pressure.
Yeah, but anyway, you're right. There's a lot of people when I'm here, and people going through, what are those things in that car? You explain, and okay. Well, I'm not one to just say, okay, they're this and this, but I have to figure out how they work and everything.
We can't leave things be.
And I'll tell you what, every time I would read on about this item, they would have to explain in this old article from like 1912 on how it works. And I'm trying to figure this out. I wanted to know. Well, I sort of had to figure out, then I would go to another article. They'd explain it differently. And it's just very laborious.
Yeah.
It's just wordy. I'm thinking, what in the world? And then then I wrote it down, like when I did figure it out, I wrote it, and it took me like 6 short lines. It's like, okay, that's it. So what do I have? I have a page and a half of notes to read. Okay, what we're talking about is these things right here. This is our 1912, right? Am I right?
1912
SGV right here, made in Reading.
Yep.
Okay, and people are always coming up and says, what are these things here?
And there's 2 in the back as well. You can't see that on the camera, but
and you look at every other vehicle we have in a museum. None of them have this. Trucks, cars, motorcycles, anything. Bicycles. No. Okay, and once in a while I see these on other cars, and they're always these big, heavy, high-end cars from the same area. And these are Westinghouse Air Springs. That's what they are. Basically, they're shock absorbers. Okay, and it's a fancy thing. And the guy who invented them is George Westinghouse, who was an inventor of a lot of things. He was an early pioneer of electric stuff. I read that it was a Westinghouse generator that they built. It was like one of the first ones, or the first, on the Niagara River up in New York or Canada. I don't know where it was. Yeah, his name popped up there. He's also famous for Westinghouse air brakes that kind of revolutionized train travel and such. And we're getting into trains again.
we like trains.
I don't know if he invented the washing machine. But anyway,
but his name is still with us today.
Yeah.
Westinghouse is still a brand.
Yep. So
yeah.
Anyway, so that was George Westinghouse, and he was an inventor of a lot of things. And he did not these are easy to say they're shock absorbers, because that's what they did is absorb the shock on rough roads. He says no, they aren't. They're an elastic air-cushioned spring. And it's a non-leaking, oil-sealed, telescoping air chamber. So there you go. So next time somebody asks, that's what you tell them.
I'm gonna need a little note card that I can write that all out on.
Just tell them it's a shock absorber. Or I don't know. Westinghouse Air Spring. It's kind of a little bit different. It's kind of neat. Sounds a little classier.
Yeah.
Okay. So Westinghouse, I came up with like maybe 3 different locations where they were. Everybody thinks Westinghouse, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. But it came up, advertisements and such, New York City. And I figured, well, okay, maybe the factory was in Pittsburgh. The
sales office
was in New York City. But then I came up with Connecticut addresses. So I don't know. And it was Westinghouse everywhere. But they're not the ones who made it. Now, the company that made it was located in Connecticut, and it was called the United States Rapid Fire Gun and Power Company. I'm thinking, that's why are they making things like this?
You know, this is not the first, we don't have to go into this too much, but this is not the first time a gun or arms manufacturer was involved in cars. Have you noticed that?
I've noticed it.
Recently, we've come across this quite a few times.
And, you know, I tried to find out more about this company, this United States Rapid Fire Gun and Power Company, and I found very, very little about it. But something I did find is that they made like guns and things like that, cannons and such. And I'm thinking, the thing is, the whole principle of this, there's 2 cylinders here, and it's kind of a precision fit. And I'm thinking that's why they could make it, you know, this company. And that's why there's a lot of gun companies and armament companies involved with early automobiles because of the precision they already had, and just, you know, Stevens Dorrier comes to mind really quick. Yeah. So anyway, so that's what that is. That's what you're looking for. So I mentioned about George Westinghouse, the shockless spring. He said it can be accurately adjusted to suit the load or preferences of the owner of each individual car. Okay? In 1912, there was 2 models of these. There was the one for cars and one for trucks. Then I came across something else, and they gave 3 models for cars depending on the weight. And so if the car weighed from 2,000 to 3,000 pounds, you got this size and this. And I came across that these are probably the wrong size because they do it by the size of diameter. I measured the diameter. This is such a light car, relatively.
Yeah.
And again, when I mentioned right in the beginning, the ones I've seen on other cars are these big, hulking, gigantic cars.
Heavy duty,
Yeah. So, but it looks neat though.
It really does.
Yeah, it's a good conversation piece for guests. So there's the 2 models. That's in 1912. In 1922, 10 years later, there was the Westinghouse Junior Air Springs for medium weight cars. So I'm not sure how all that fits together, but the Junior Air Springs, I had a price of $175 installed. Okay, I'm thinking that's just one.
Wow.
Because, let me go back to where I have it. Okay, I read somewhere that shocks and installation was about $1,000 for a set of 4. Think of that. That's 1912 prices, that $1,000. Okay.
Not cheap.
In 1912, a brand new Ford cost $590. So I am not positive about that $1,000, but they were expensive, and that's why you sold them high-end cars.
Yeah.
So some cars apparently had them as a factory item. I didn't find any instances of that except them mentioning that some cars had them. Basically, let's see, I'm trying to think an easy way to explain how they work. It's pretty simple, but again, when I was reading this, they made something simple complicated. And I hate that.
That's how patent drawings work usually.
Oh, yeah, you know. It's crazy. Okay, so here how it works. On the top of this is an air chamber, okay? And on the bottom of it is an oil chamber. And the oil chamber, the bottom of this is hooked into the spring of the car. Now, if you look sideways, the spring is hooked up in the bottom here, goes like inside of that. So as you hit a bump, the spring will bounce and such, and this bottom part will actually move up and down. The top part is stationary. It's attached to the frame of the car here, okay? And you can see this bar here going across. That keeps everything nice and stable, even more so.
All squared up.
Now, also in the top part is sort of like a disc, like a valve with little tiny holes in it. And that is stationary also with the top part. Now, in the bottom part you have oil. The top part you have pressurized air. You following this?
I'm following.
I'm trying to keep it
Okay.
understandable here. Okay, as the bottom goes up, that little disc with the holes stays there, and there's oil, and it gets forced through those little holes, but it's restricted, so it kind of dampens the whole thing. Also, if you take this top off, there's a little air valve. It looks just like the air valve you would see on a wheel or a tire, okay? And you would pressurize this to a certain amount, and I have the amount that's handy dandy here, and I forget what it is now. But it's, 45 to 90 pounds per square inch. Okay, there you go. And anyway, so you would fill that up with the air, 45 to 90 PSI. So you have that pressurized air, plus the oil coming through, so it would dampen everything. There's around 6 inches of movement, which is quite a bit. And you look at this, and there's about 6 inches there, maybe a little less. But you also think, I don't know exactly how old these air springs are, but if they're as old as the car, they're 109 years old. So things 109 years old sag a bit, okay?
Yeah, we won't.
And there's
Won't
also
dwell on that, but yes, it's true.
the oil inside of it also not only shocks everything, but it lubricates things and the seals in it. There's certain seals in there that keeps them sealed tight so things don't leak. However, after 109 years, those seals can leak, and you see there's telltale spots.
Some evidence of that here.
And I did not look yet, but I bet if I went to the back of the car, there's spots there too.
Probably.
Okay, so that's them. I got some interesting things here. Some advertisements I came across. I'm going to read you. These are like testimonials. But before I do that, this is something that came out of Commercial America magazine, 1919. Okay, so these shocks air springs were around for a number of years. So again, 1919, it says the oil passage surrounding the piston is purposely restricted in order to retard the quick reaction of the spring. Okay, which kind of is what I was saying, and thus prevent the disagreeable and dangerous catapult effect that is so apt to throw passengers from their seat when the car is passing over car tracks or other road obstructions.
Wow.
The catapult action.
Wow, that's dramatic.
Yeah, and especially on this car, and we're not really going to show you. You have to come, you viewers, and look at this car, because you can see the two seats here, and there's what they call a mother-in-law seat in the back. Now, I remember from being a kid and riding in a bus that the bouncier ride was in the back of the bus, okay? All right. Now, this single seat in the back actually has handles on it. So even with the Westinghouse Air Springs, there's probably still a chance of catapult effect.
Yeah.
And
It's a tiny
I thought that
seat.
was neat.
It's a tiny seat. It doesn't come up high and like keep you in.
No, that's right. You rode in there.
I rode in that back seat.
But Mike
I
kind of
think
took
I
it easy.
bounced higher than the seat.
Yeah, and I was on regular paved roads.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, modern day.
Yeah, there was no,
roads.
what's it say here? There's no car tracks we had to run over or road obstructions.
We did go over railroad tracks.
Oh.
That's when I bounced the highest,
okay.
actually.
Okay. So I want to read you some testimonials here. They have them in their advertisements here, Westinghouse Air Springs. So here's one. It says, from somebody, names and addresses gladly furnished on request.
Oh.
Yeah. So I don't know who this is. Okay. Within the past 24 hours, I had to drive over a stretch of very choppy or bumpy, chattery road, the kind of road that would the kind of road that would jiggle the teeth out of one's mouth in any car not equipped with Westinghouse Air Springs. The way my car glided over these bumps, the absence of noise and clatter, and the comfort I enjoy impels me to drop you this note in rather a spirit of gratitude. Wow. You have made it possible for a motorist, regardless of the car he drives, to laugh at the road. That's advertising.
Isn't that great?
And before we went on the filming, the taping here, we were talking about that, okay? And we're saying it's great advertising. This is I'm presuming
just puts
this
me
is
in a good mood to read and listen to it. I just
especially
love
jiggling the teeth. Okay. Okay, here's another one here. This guy is from John Wirtz from Law Department of Yale University.
Oh,
I didn't see that.
This
earlier.
is some serious business
and
then.
it's kind of a long thing, and it has like 6 points to it. I mean, that's a lawyer.
Oh, yeah.
I'm only going to read you a little bit here. Anyway, I installed the Westinghouse Air Springs on my Cadillac car about the 1st of October 1920. Since then, I have driven the car over 25,000 miles, including a trip to the Pacific Ocean or Pacific Coast and back. In June of 1914, since June of 1914, I have made 6 round trips from New Haven to the Pacific Coast and back. Until I used your springs, I never made the crossing without breaking from 5 to 10 leaves of steel springs. But on my last trip with the Air Springs, I reached home with all the steel springs intact. And then he goes on and has 6 different points. I'm going to read you one of them. The riding qualities of the car have been enhanced beyond my ability to describe in language of moderation. And the nervous strength of the occupants of the car is no longer wasted by the hammering on rough roads. So,
He made a cross-country trip 6 times?
Well,
Is that what he's saying?
between 1914 and 1920.
That's no small deal
No.
back then. Wow.
I have to investigate. That
I
sounds
hope
like a
he wrote
TV
a
show.
book. I hope he wrote a book. That sounds interesting.
John Wirtz, Wurts.
All right, John, we're going to look you up.
Okay, here's another one here. This guy's from C.A. Compton from San Francisco. The comfort I derive from the use of your Westinghouse Air Springs is beyond my expectations. To prove my statement, will say I am now using my 3rd car equipped with your springs. The savings on tire and automobile in general more than pays for having your car equipped with Westinghouse Air Springs. I gladly recommend your Air Springs to every automobile owner who wishes to obtain real pleasure and comfort from his automobile. Now, he touched on it, and a guy previous too. They're kind of talking about the ride itself, but you have to realize that the rough roads back then could rattle a car to its death, pieces falling off and breaking springs and stuff. That was kind of interesting there too. So anyway, the last thing before I end up here, I got my assistant here, Kendra, and this is something I found online. This is actually an advertising, probably for a counter advertisement that you'd see in a store or something. And I know you can't read the little writing inside the triangle there, but I'm going to kind of read it here. And it says, coming and going, you see these Westinghouse Air Springs. Today, your motor car is not efficiently equipped without a set of 4 Westinghouse Air Springs. If yesterday we had asked you what remaining automobile problem you personally wish to see solved first of all, you would have said wear and tear, tire problems, and rough riding over country roads. Today, we have solved the problem for you. Watch the up-to-date cars go by, those used by the most critical and those kind of people. And you will see how the Westinghouse Air Springs attached to the front and rear of the machine while making the car run like a yacht in a lagoon actually improve the appearance of the car and are so fitted as to appear to be integral with the part of the original design. And it goes on to give the address and stuff. And so, everything was about making the car ride smooth. And this is just another thing. And and we have cars here with other types of aftermarket shocks and such. Nothing as cool as these.
Yeah, these are the cream of the crop right here.
And we have, something called snubbers, which are like spring-loaded, and we have other ones that have two arms like that and have a piece of rubber in between them, so there's a lot of resistance there. We got, all sorts of things, but these are the neat ones.
Yeah.
And I have to thank Matt and Al for kind of touching up this car.
Matt and Alan.
Yeah, and they did that, especially these, that it makes it look pretty special there. So thank you, Matt and Alan. So.
Well, they're so attention-getting because they're big, for one thing,
Yeah.
and they're more brass. I mean,
Yeah.
your eye's drawn to the brass or anything shiny.
And they look out of place, compared to all the other vehicles we have.
I guess they do. Well, it's like two big brass canisters. What are those?
Yeah.
That's what they are. Air Springs.
Air Springs, Westinghouse Air Springs.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it.
Now you know.
And now you know. So thank you for joining us here again on MotorMouth, and we will see you next time here at the Boyertown Museum of Historic Vehicles.
Or come and visit and check out the mother-in-law seat.
That too. You got to do that.